I'm Isyander.
And I'm Coda.
And today we're going to be talking about the Thousand Sons.
1K son.
Yeah. Who are very... love them or hate them, really. Or at least it usually is fairly love them or hate them.
I'd say I kind of like them.
I somehow, or we, I should say, have managed to build a space safe for every particle of dust. I mean, Thousand Sons fan out there. Because they won the poll by such a wide margin. I promise you now, as vengeance, Magnus is going against Vulcan and Guilliman. That was too easy. It was up there with Vulcan in terms of everyone was on the same page. We want to learn about these guys. So I don't know how. Usually, everywhere else I've gone, I'll be honest, I've seen the Thousand Sons as very like, oh, this is so cool, talk about them, or never speak about them ever.
It's because it's I don't know. Didn't they spite the Imperium pretty bad once or twice?
You'll see. We'll cover that later. For now, it does leave us with the three options, with the Death Guard, who smell, the World Eaters, who don't, and the High Lords of Terra, who smell, but like prune juice and Werthers.
I'd imagine the World Eaters still smell. Gore and viscera still stinks.
Like copper. But the Death Guard are the smelliest. Let's just be honest. Those are your choices.
Yeah, disease is still smellier than viscera.
Yeah. Those are your choices. Be sure to make yourselves heard in the comments, as Nurgle would want you to, as Khorne would politely ask you to. Wait, I got that backwards. No. Khorne would definitely want... No, hold on. Nurgle would want you to. Khorne would want you to. Nurgle would politely ask you to. And the High Lords would demand you to. So make sure you make your voices heard.
That took so much mental brain power.
Oh, my brain's going to be taxed this episode. Yeah. We also have a Patreon where you can get bonus episodes like this week where we covered Ahriman, who is going to be relevant this episode for sure because he's a lot. And
filming that episode, I was like, a lot of this feeds into the official video, doesn't it?
Yep. And so by heading over there, you get a bonus episode every week. This week, they got 2 bonus episodes. You get to join the Discord, monthly live streams, and a bunch of other perks with more to come soon. So if you want to head on over there and help us keep all of these lights on and buy more studio space, while also getting a bunch of other perks and more of what you already love, make sure you head on over to patreon.com/Isyander and Coda. Thank you for all of those already there, and thank you so much for those of you signing up as I speak. Now, let's get into the Thousand Sons.
Yes.
Because it's going to be weird. We've done this enough times that you know the vague flow of this. A lot of these videos run parallel to the Primarchs because it's a very father-son kind of thing. Yeah, they're always running by each other's side.
They kind of were just like doing something. Oh, Dad showed up. And then now we're doing what Dad wants.
Exactly. The Thousand Sons are different because they are very independent of Magnus while also being inextricably linked to him.
Ah, great.
It leads to the situation where this episode, you will notice there are gaps in knowledge because this is for the Thousand Sons. It doesn't cover Magnus that much. And it's a very fun thing you don't get. Because I'll be honest, for almost every other Legion, their perspective is Dad's perspective until he goes off to buy milk someday.
I mean, let's look at the Blueberry Boys. De facto, they're still treating Dad's book like it's the Bible.
Yeah, they do, which Dad hates. But this is fun, so I will be purposefully. It's very fitting for their patron that they'd have these kind of gaps in their knowledge. Is what I'm gonna say. That is 12,000 years ahead of where we need to be, though. The Thousand Sons go way back, and we are way, way, way ahead of ourselves. So let's go back to February 14th, 30,001. Because Big E decides to place a curse that only me and other November babies will fully understand when you're older. I'm sorry if this is how you're finding out. 9 months later, though, bing, bang, boom, out pops 20, 21, 18 different kids. With each one being a reflection of their dad, who would then go on to kind of reflect themselves into their legions. So it's very Big E. You still haven't gotten over that February 14th thing, have you?
No, I haven't. I've already made this realization. It's just very painful that you're going to force every November baby in our audience to realize this right now.
If I must know and bear this curse being a mid-November baby, you guys must as well. So I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
I'm a giver. And so and so it's very simple to see how it works. It's really, you're just dividing with fractions and Punnett squares. The Emperor is the biggest guy. The Primarchs are the second biggest guy. The Legion are the third biggest guy. It's real easy. The Emperor, for all intents and purposes, is, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one, the ultimate Mary Sue. I can feel the typing. Let me finish. The Emperor in canon can and do pretty much anything he wants.
The technical term for male characters is Gary Stew.
Well, yeah, sure, whatever. He's a Gary Stew. Anything the Emperor, I don't think anyone would debate me on this. Anything the Emperor looks at directly and deals with will be solved, with the only exception to that being the fundamental aspects of the universe, like chaos. Because, look,
somehow he can't fix that.
No, because
it's been dogging him for...
Superman's all powerful, but he can't fix gravity. It is what it is. Effectively, he's at war with the basic laws of the natural world, and he can't change that, but he is close enough that those fundamental aspects, these things that just exist whether he was there or not, have a name for him, know exactly where he is, and meddle in his daily life. He's obscenely powerful. They don't, it's not just, oh, you know, it's not like they know, oh, it's Biggie, you know, that's the guy. No, the name they have for him is Anathema. It's not just that guy. It is the cursed thing I hate the most.
Imagine if gravity hated you specifically,
yes,
and would find you and like either multiply your G-force by like 10 or negative, like,
yeah.
And just send you flying.
And those are the people he hates. To the people who love him, they call him Revelation. For a guy who hated to be called divine or to be worshipped, he reeked of divinity. Everything he did just poured of the stuff.
Or at least the closest thing to divinity saw him as their equals and hated the hell out of him.
They don't. Chaos does not see him as an equal. They see him as a problem, which is a compliment in and of itself. You know?
He's big enough to be a problem.
Maybe nowadays they see him as that, but not back then.
Something going on there.
Yes. However, the thing that reins it in, the thing that makes the Emperor's obscene level of power okay, is he can't be everywhere at once. It's the same way Superman does not just throw all of DC into chaos by being as strong as he is. Listen, if you're being mugged and Superman arrives, yeah, cool, day saved, whatever. But odds are he won't. Because Doomsday's a block over. And Lex Luthor's 3 blocks that way, you know? Odds are Superman won't be there. And it's the same thing with 40K, just far more genocidal. Odds are the Emperor will not be there to deal with this problem. So he has to have, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm fairly certain the Emperor is worse than any version of Superman we've ever seen. Even the silver one who beats the brakes off of regular Superman. It's a really cool design. It's like a white Superman, like he's wearing white clothing with gold trim, and he's got the, like, you know, the Omni-Man kind of beard and hair where it's black until suddenly it's stark white.
Yeah, and then he's got the sides of his head are like white too.
Yeah, he looks like that. And
yeah.
I kid you not, that version, I'm gonna geek out for a moment. That version of Superman stops a punch from regular Superman with his finger. It's the most embarrassing thing.
Is that like actually a direct influence on Omni-Man?
We're not going to get into that. It's a whole different topic. Moral of the story is, Biggie is like the worst variant of evil Superman imaginable. He takes it to the... Because he plans. He's methodical. He's good at this. It's not just, Lois Lane died, I'm going to take it out on the criminals. No, I will exterminate them systematically because this is the best way to do it. Yeah. No, the Emperor... The Great Crusade works to some extent. Regardless, the Emperor cannot be on every single battlefield everywhere, winning all the time.
He's only one guy.
So to do that, he has kids. And each kid is meant to be almost as good as him at one thing. It's very convenient. It does lead to oddities, you know, like some file his taxes, others build his garden walls. As you can imagine...
There's a little bit of a disparity in power between these two people.
Using skill-based matchmaking to have kids is insanity. And that's effectively what the Emperor did here. It leads to this vast disparity where there's a kid who canon is so handsome people weep at his feet just looking at him, and has wings that stretch. I realized the second I said the line, leave me alone. Okay, leave me alone. Just shut up. Just shut up, okay? He has angelic wings and is unrivaled in combat. That's one of his kids, by the way. That's just one of his kids. And there's another one who gets metal hands and a very weak neck.
And there's another one who's really sadistic.
Yeah.
That's his gimmick.
It's not all equal, but very few of the Emperor's plans are. It is what it is. This just needs to work, okay? Magnus, who is the most relevant for today's episode, got it great. He got it probably the best.
He got the brains, didn't he?
No.
Oh.
That's Gilman. Gilman got all those brains.
Gilman got the taxes.
I like to reduce Gilman down to taxes very aggressively. There's a lot more to it than just taxes. He can it's a known thing. All of his... This isn't a Gilman episode. Don't get me started. I see what you're doing here, Witch. Witch. Magnus got the Emperor's unrestrained psychic might.
So he did get his brains.
There is... Yeah, technically, but not really, you know? It's not the way he thinks. It's more what he can do with his brain. It's the equivalent of somebody getting the Emperor's hand-eye coordination and the other getting the Emperor's musculature, you know?
That makes sense. It's a good way of putting it.
Exactly. So there is nothing and nobody in the Imperium, period, who is as good of a psyker as Magnus. It is the Emperor, Magnus 1 inch below him. That is it. He's so powerful that A... That's a spoiler, never mind. B, well, I was getting ahead of myself. Some of this is relevant, some of this isn't. B, he as a kid, because, you know, babies don't remember anything. They don't. Otherwise, they'd be way more embarrassed about everything they put you through. But as a kid, he remembers being born in a test tube and interacting with the Emperor psychically before being stolen away.
Whoa.
He's that level of psyker.
Whoa.
And he's even been in contact on and off with the Emperor since.
Like, even while he was...
Plausibly.
Stolen away. Whoa.
Yes. It goes without saying that the Legion that descends from Magnus would go on to be the best psychers of any Space Marine Legion. I mean, just that's their blueprint.
That's insane.
It really is. And so as the kids get stolen away, scattered across the universe, and the Emperor has to make do, so he makes a legion for them, right? And it's already very difficult to make a Space Marine Legion because the requirements are so steep. I like to say everyone here, most here would be a guardsman. Because that's how
statistically that's
how it works. The best of the best become Space Marines. Now, the odds of you being the best of the best and a psyker are almost zero. So the number of aspirants for the first wave of the 1,000 Suns numbered at just that. 1,000 Suns. Period.
Is this why they're called the 1,000 Suns?
Yep. And they were, I think, we're not sure. But it's a very nice coincidence.
It lines up so nicely. That's probably what it is.
Right? They were ushered into labs and modified beyond humanity to become these Space Marines where they went out and were boring.
Oh. They're psychics. How do you make psychics boring?
Because for some reason they came out and they didn't have any powers.
So all of that for nothing.
Yep.
Whoa.
And on top of all of that, while this legion was being made, there were these massive unexplained warp storms that racked not just the area around Earth, not just the entire solar system, but would rage so close to Earth that people would go mad. I'm talking ripping your hair out, gnashing of teeth mad, within spitting distance of the Emperor's throne.
Frightening.
Custodians had to deal with this. It was that bad.
The Custodies had to deal with this.
Yes. Is that an omen? Maybe. Somebody pulling the strings? Probably not. Don't think about it too much. What matters is right now they came out and they were the equivalent of a good Camry. which is, it's just an car. I don't mind Camrys. If you drive a Camry, it's whatever. I've driven them.
Honestly, that's a good compliment. Camrys, they're good old reliable.
But they were just an legion. Every other legion was kind of falling into itself a little bit. You could see the reflections of their dad. These guys were just kind of very competent people, I guess. All that work for this? Really? And I know I'm oversimplifying a lot. There's just so much to cover this episode, man. There's so much to cover this episode. But thankfully, after about 5 to 10-ish years of being milquetoast at best,
boring,
all of them got psychic powers.
Oh, cool.
Instantaneously. All of them.
Just it snapped and they're there?
Yes. Before this, the most interesting thing about them was their heraldry, which is really good. At no point in their lives have they had a bad color scheme. They've just had an annoying one to paint. That's it.
The bright red metallic?
Well, it's bright red and metallic at some point. In this point, it's white and gold with trims of purple. And then like later on, it becomes this cobalt azure blue. It's so good.
They have made...
They have some of the best just heraldry.
They have me by the spinal column right there.
It's so good. That was the most interesting thing about them. Now... they had the very fabric of reality to play with. I mean, worlds would be brought to heal with fire and brimstone. It wasn't just, they got their powers. No, they got their powers and they were decent with them.
Just from the beginning?
Yes.
Huh.
The problem is, they got reality to play with, something decided to play back. And around this time, they would get gripped by something known as the flesh change.
Ew.
Which is this sometimes rapid, degenerative disease that would melt everything that was once a man away and twist your body while you are still within your armor until you become this, it's an abomination really at the end of it. Mm-mm. Bones would break, muscles would re-stitch into new patterns while you're alive, by the way.
No, thank you.
And it is horrifically painful, with victims usually falling and begging for mercy. It's not pleasant, obviously. The first time that happened, everyone said, we need to fix this. Call the Emperor, call Malcador, call somebody, because that's not normal.
Literally call anyone. I don't know what to do about this.
And no one could figure out, nobody could. Not even the Emperor. Now, part of it is, again, the Emperor doesn't have the time to look at this one legion specifically and fix it.
He is only one guy, and he has a lot of projects.
But still, it was unfixable to them, so they resorted to stuff them in the freezer. Maybe when Magnus shows up, this will be fixed. And in the meantime, the Thousand Sons had to deal with being in combat, and then suddenly the guy to your left grows at a rate so fast they spill out of their armor, or you're just out and about one day, you cast Thunderbolt, and you feel your skin start to rebel against you. It suddenly feels cold and waxy as something or someone is twisting you.
Basically, that one weird scene from Akira.
I don't know. I haven't watched Akira.
You've seen the gif of the dude, like, his hand is on a throne and he's, like, crying in pain as it expands and morphs around the...
Yeah, sure.
The armrest of the throne.
That sounds about right.
Eventually, he turns into a big flesh mound, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's pretty accurate. And that's what the Thousand Sons had to deal with until they found Magnus, which thankfully did not take too long, as Magnus had landed on this planet called Prospero.
Was it very prosperous?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it was a haven for those who would not be valued within the Imperium, which is mostly mutants and psychers. It was deliberately settled real far away from Earth to avoid humanity at all costs.
Wow.
Because psychers aren't loved in 40K, and that is because they cause strife in very weird ways. First of all, there's the normal way empowered people cause. It's the X-Men kind of way, where psychers and mutants, they cause discomfort in the general populace because...
You're different.
No, it's not even you're different. Look, people get insecure about height. Imagine if people could just cast Thunderbolt now. You start feeling like a bit of an evolutionary dead end, you know? And so there's that level of strife of, yick. Am I just obsolete now because you exist? And the weird jealousy that comes with that. Some people worship them, some people revile them. And then B, on top of all of that, because 40K sucks, it can never just stop being bad enough. Every time Magneto tries to open the fridge, his head could explode and he becomes a permanent portal for demons to walk through.
Oh, that's awesome.
So psychers are not treated great in 40k. At the best, the very best, they get witch hunted. At the worst, there is a logbook with every psyker. Yep. It's unideal. It is unideal. So this distance did cause the Emperor to take a bit of a sweet time getting to Magnus. And this plight that they deliberately avoided, I only mention because it's integral to the Thousand Sons. The plight that psychers face in the Imperium is the asphalt upon it's a paving that they take to the road to hell. It's what causes a lot of their downfall, them trying to fix how they're perceived effectively for just being the way they are. Thankfully, though, again, Magnus was found. He was found 10th, 5th, 8th, 9th, 3rd. You got that?
I think I got that.
Okay. Which, honestly, if you consider all of Magnus's homeworld was probably lit up like a Christmas tree to the Emperor. Psychers put out a little bit of light, and look at the Emperor. You can use him to navigate.
And if you put them all in one place.
Yeah, and the fact that Magnus maybe was talking to the Emperor the whole time, it's entirely possible, though not canon, that the Emperor was beelining it to Prospero the whole time, and he just happened to find the rest of his sons along the way. Because technically speaking, this is the son he has known the longest. It's full bore. You know, like the way Jean Grey talks to her kid using her mind, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the Emperor and Magnus were, is like father and son. Or
Big E was just kind of like, "Hey, I like you, kiddo." It's just psychically to him.
Well, it's more like, why is this kid pressing into me right now? What the? Oh, feels weird. That's odd. None of the others are doing that. We figured out what your specialty is. He's also bright red, so they always knew something was up with him.
Doesn't he also have like one eye?
We'll get to that.
Oh.
He has two right now.
He has two right now.
He has both eyes right now.
Okay.
And he uses both when both eyes land on the Emperor. They immediately recognize each other and they hug. There's no strife at all. It's the kind of bond that clearly shows they've known each other forever, longer than they've been able to see each other. It's a weird bond to describe, but it's an unbreakable one. And that's before we mention that. Okay, look, all Space Marines are the manliest of men. It's masculinity taken to a comical degree, but hey, like I say, if the bit's good enough, keep committing, right? But it doesn't matter how manly of a man you are. Every single legion fangirls a little bit when they see Dad. The Thousand Sons had all the reason to, because when they land, they find a gilded city of white marble and gold pyramids, with no crude walls as their defense, but vast swaths of blinding light. Walls made of sheer willpower made manifest.
I would, as the kids say, squee at that.
Oh, they were all doing that. Prospero was quite possibly the best any Primarch has done with their homeworld, counting Guilliman. Yeah.
Okay.
There was no disease, there was no strife, it was just a place of preservation and learning. There's stuff here that only the Emperor knew about.
A planet as well done as Guilliman's?
Yeah, you must understand, in Prospero you have cancer, you go see the Biomancer and he fixes it.
Huh.
He either pushes the tumor back to the way it should be, or just removes it magically.
Huh.
Yes.
Huh. That's...
And it's not just, it is everything they had hoped. It is a psyker paradise. It vindicates everything they felt. All the weird looks they've been getting for turning into blobs of flesh, it's suddenly all verified. Oh my god, people can use these powers, and it does work. And look at how much better it works than everything else. It's a whole moment for them, and it gets even better when Magnus immediately recognizes them for what they are, and devotes decades of his life to teaching them everything he knows and everything his homeworld knows, which immediately makes them far better psychers, and B, guaranteeing he will cure the flesh change.
That's a big guarantee.
Well, the first thing he does is the impossible, which is take all the, because every Primarch lands and kind of has a faux family until the Emperor arrives. He was raised by a group of guys who were on the older side. Becoming a Space Marine is really tense on the body, and even young folk don't survive it very well, so old folk really don't survive it well.
I mean, think about it. Surgery becomes very, very not survivable when the older you get.
Yes. Magnus manages to make them all Space Marines.
Just hand wave. Your Space Marines now.
Reality is a suggestion there.
Suggestion.
Yeah. And the moment that's all done and he gets his legion up to speed, he locks himself away with a single focus, which is curing the flesh change. And it does pay off when he returns months later, missing an eye, but with a cure for the flesh change.
Okay.
Yeah. Right? How do you lose that eye? Good question. Irrelevant. What matters is
I've watched enough Full Metal Alchemist to know something is up.
It's irrelevant.
Something is up.
Nothing happened. What matters is he succeeded and the flesh change stopped when he got back. Now, the problem was, at this point, their numbers had been gutted back down to about 1,000 sons. But for those that were still around, the mutations had actually stopped. And now they could use their powers at full without ever worrying about it. So they just went about great crusading and curb stomping people in the name of definitely not a god emperor. Now, during the Great Crusade, each legion had varying levels of participation. Some took planet after planet after planet after planet. They're just on a roll. It's a hot streak from the moment they're discovered. That's Guilliman and Horus. They're doing great. Nobody ever questions them. Some were going slower. The 1,000 Suns were on the slower side of things.
Well, there's only 1,000 of them.
Yeah, okay. True. There is only 1,000 of them, but they are getting real brazen with their full power.
How brazen?
They would arrive and the skies would open with lightning.
Open.
They would be...
These skies would open.
Yes.
That exact verbiage.
There would be hurricanes of magma and fire. Sometimes they would bring worlds into compliance, not with gunfire, but enthralling an entire city.
Huh.
They were getting shady.
That is definitely shady.
Yes. And on top of all of that, Magnus would try and leave every world a little bit better than he found it. And also would totally target worlds that were older and had repositories of knowledge and then take his sweet time combing over all of that. He would also occasionally just up and leave if he found something he liked more. They were very ADHD in that way. And as they were doing this, as they were going to these areas for more and more esoteric knowledge, it would bring them in contact with more and more shady things. Leman Russ, who is the Wolf King that abhors anything that's psychic, despite having them in his legion.
Why would I need magic? I have my axe.
And Mortarion, who suffered at the hands of psychers, really were not fans of these antics. They were not thrilled, and this came to a head when this planet had signed its own death warrant. Leman Russ arrived and said, "Hey, you can surrender or I will break your teeth." And they said, "Break my teeth." He then pried their jaws open and started removing them one at a time and shattering them. Leman does not mess around. He's I will ask you once. You said no, I'm just a postman at this point. Listen, this is clockwork.
Isn't he known as the Emperor's executioner?
Yes. Listen, I gave Magnus his dues in the Wolf video. I have to give Leman his dues in this video. The amount of times somebody steps up to him and then is lifted by an axe the size of their body is uncountable. It's so much fun. It goes without saying that about 3 teeth deep, they immediately say, "Oh, we're done. I'm so sorry."
Okay. Sorry.
I didn't think you'd actually manage this, dude.
I didn't think you had that kind of energy.
and if you know Leman, you know, once it started, it's done. Your chance to surrender was in the beginning when I offered it. It wasn't a joke. I told you what I'm going to do, and now I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. And this world was an older one with tons of great libraries. And so Magnus immediately goes, whoa, they're surrendering, come on.
Can I have the libraries first, please?
No, but his argument is, they're surrendered. Let's not burn everything to the ground, come on. Give me at least like 5 minutes to pour over this.
I'd love to just read.
Yes, and they said, no, I must now remove any trace of their existence. Dad's orders. Sorry. I do what I must. And the tensions keep boiling and boiling, and the Thousand Sons come to blows with the Space Wolves.
Wait, come to full blow? Like, a battle happens?
A small one. Psychic powers are used against the wolves, and they're trying hard enough that one of them, in that moment, spontaneously takes up to the flesh change again, becoming this hideous monster before Leman Russ's eyes, begging for mercy, to which Leman goes, okay, and immediately executes him.
Huh.
Immediately executes him, goes, you are all witches and heretics. I don't know what you're doing, but none of my guys have ever done that, because the flesh change was kind of kept a secret. And now it was no longer a secret.
I thought it was supposed to be cured up to this point.
It was. And Magnus lost a whole eye over this. Or, just lost it in a different... writing accident. It happens.
Okay.
Fell asleep on his pen.
Writing it. Fell asleep on...
What matters is...
I fell.
What matters is, in this moment, Magnus and Russ are going to fight, and it's only one Primarch stepping in and going, whoa, 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 whoa. Magnus, go away. Leman, finish what you started. It takes one of their brothers intervening to prevent them from outright coming to blows, but at this point, the damage is done. The Thousand Sons always had detractors. From the very beginning, there were people who were whispering they were cursed because they came out when all these warp storms were happening, to those who witnessed them in combat and were filled with nothing but fear, to those that were just certain whatever you're using is a force you don't fully fathom. You need to stop. There were just some people who wanted them dead. What matters is that chorus of voices... Hold on. What matters is that chorus of voices on that day gained a Primarch's backing.
So it's kind of Jover from this point.
Yes. And for this part, hold on. Yes. And for this part, hold on. And to accurately describe this next portion, I will need a slight costume change. So I'll be right back. Trust the process.
Okay.
All rise. I said all rise.
I am going to be halfway off the camera. I am 6 foot.
Maybe seated.
I've been seated.
All right. Today we will be covering the case of... hold on. Give me a moment here. Today will be... What? This is necessary for the story. Trust me.
Those are my glasses.
Oh, I know, and your vision's heinous. But, yeah, no, your vision's horrendous. But anyway. Yeah, your depth perception leaves a lot to be desired. Anyway, you are here before the Honorable Judge Big E, otherwise known as Neoth. 13 Shaman in a trench coat. Jimmy Space, inventor of the Space Marines. Anathema and Revelation, among many names. Taking the stand will be one Leman Russ, otherwise known as Lemon Rush, Salty Furry, and a bad Viking gimmick gone too far. Today we will also be hearing from Mortarion, otherwise known as Wheezy, Morty, the Sapient Stink Cloud, and the Pale King. Welcome to the Council of Nikea. It is easily one of the most important moments for all of the Thousand Sons. It is vital. It changes everything. One would say this is the beginning of the end, because they walk into this council expecting They were expecting everyone eager to learn about how they were managing everything they were doing and how powerful they'd become and how they could better bolster some of their forces with this power. This is
some form of fairness or curiosity.
right. This is the moment they are embraced as these different powerhouses that they know they are, and would be welcomed into the family finally, because they were always seen in a very awkward light. Instead, they had walked into a trial where the charge was their very existence. With brother taking the stand against brother, not calling for sanctioning, but proper execution. Yeah, there's some family drama in uppercase E's family. It's not great.
So is this a trial or family feud?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
It is a Thousand Sons episode, so I will be overly fair to Magnus. I will be real generous during the duration of this trial, but I cannot gloss over the fact that at this point they have made nothing but enemies. Everywhere they've gone. It is... Okay, I usually wait until the end of the episode to bring forward a legion's failings. I always do. It's out of respect. Every legion has their mistakes. But I do have to bring it up because this is where they all come to bear.
This is a trial. If the defense needs to know exactly what they're working with.
Precisely. It's Icarus. It's a legion full of people flying way too close to the sun. And on multiple occasions, they have outright left battlefields out of curiosity, leaving someone else to hold the bag just because it's like, oh, well, we heard about this weird relic. Let's go figure that out.
That looks like a cool book. I'll read that.
They have come to odds with the Loyalists twice, with them barricading themselves into a library and telling the Night Lords that they should leave because the Night Lords wouldn't want to blow up a building with civilians in it. The Night Lords. They have a skin room with gallons... Watch the Night Lords episode. We won't get into that room. They're not the ones. They're not the ones. You don't play chicken with them, and they did. And Magnus is even on the barge, real smug, telling him you wouldn't bombard it, and Curse says, ha! And then immediately does.
Now I'm really gonna bombard it.
And immediately does. This brings forth their second failing in crystal clarity, which is just naivete. I mean, Kurz puts it real mean. I'll say it because it's the best way to do it. They have no sense of self-preservation. None. If pride is what comes before the fall, this is the anvil tied to their feet. They never... They just walk into situation after situation where people are at best ambivalent about their existence and at worst actively itching to kill them. And when they walk into that room, they're not humble. They don't show any form of deference to everyone. They instead, I kid you not, one of your brothers is calling for execution, and you know what Magnus does? Reads a poem and compares their plight to that of Plato's cave, twisting it up a bit just to make it fit better. And then he calls for, I'm not joking, a complete deregulation of all psychers everywhere, no matter what.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a very hard case to make.
Yeah.
Oh.
Again, Thousand Sons episode, gotta be very fair to them. It comes from the best of places. You have to think about it from Magnus's perspective. Sure, complete deregulation. Sounds crazy. Sounds schizophrenic. But he grew up on Prospero. He watched it work better than everywhere else. Magnus isn't a person who had first words to his father. He was a person who had first thoughts with his father. It is tied to who he is, and the same way people remember learning how to ride a bike or walk, he remembers learning how to skim the seas of the warp. This is normal to him. It's like asking everyone to just suddenly stop walking around. It's stupid. We have this power. We should use it or else. And this perspective makes even more sense when you remember, despite being the person who was doing the most sailing on the seas of the warp, he was the one kept in the dark about how deep it could really go. Big E, despite being able to psychically talk to him whenever he wanted, never mentioned the dangers of the warp.
He didn't mention that the only reason they have these powers is because the Hell Dimension exists?
Nope. He didn't even mention that there are 4 chaos gods who are quite literally preying on all of our downfalls every damn day. Of course, to a man like that, of course he'd use the warp brazenly. He'd never even think about it. This is, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? He has only ever flown. Everyone else is walking around him, and nobody ever mentions that those wings are made of wax.
I mean, why wouldn't we use any other type of gasoline but leaded gasoline? It cleans the valves so good.
Yeah, so everyone is being everyone is being really superstitious. To him, he was approaching using the warp with a rational and calm mind. Everyone else was crazy. And there's no better way to describe the levels of sham trial this was than to refer to this one piece of art I love so much that shows Magnus just arguing his point, thinking that he can convince them with his words, as the whole room just towers around him, and it makes him look small and confused.
Even by a Primarch standards.
Yeah, he's the smartest guy in the room, but he's too stupid to recognize everyone's already made up their mind. In no uncertain terms are the Thousand Sons sanctioned. They're fully reined in, and they can only use conventional warfare, or the Emperor himself will fix it. Effectively, the order at the end of Nikea was you cannot exist anymore.
As you are.
And this was decided in a room that would not hear any of their pleas. The trial is such... I say this a lot. Could be its own episode. It's from the fact that Mortarian's testimony pissed off Magnus so much, he psychically knocked out damn near everyone in the room.
Ugh.
Just because for a moment he let go of the limiters. To the fact that the Thousand Son, who he bothered to turn into a space marine and was the guy who raised him, had a demon steal his face and murder his custodies in public. During the trial, by the way.
Oh.
There is an unfathomable... the stage for the trial was built ages ago, and Malkador knew it was going to be used for this. He told Mortarion that someday there will be a time when the Psychers will be cleansed from the Imperium, and it'll be Mortarion's turn. This will be his biggest role to play in this arena.
Huh.
The fact that the Khan was nowhere nearby, despite being the only person who was pro-Psyker and could make a well-reasoned argument that most people would agree with.
The Khan is pro-Psyker?
Oh, he's very pro-Psyker. Huh, yeah. To the fact that everyone was at this trial except for Leman Russ. Which was weird to Magnus, until you zoom out for a moment, and you see there's a figure cloaked with Sisters of Silence always near Magnus during this trial. What did you say Leman was? It's such a well-written scene. And my favorite is the sheer discomfort each Thousand Son feels as they approach the main room. They feel... I love Psychers when they get good writing from their perspective, because they do such a good job of showing the experience, because they feel their powers waning as they get closer. And it's not because the Sisters of Silence are nearby, but it's because the ocean, this thing that they usually reach for constantly and they're always aware of, is being blotted out by this light in the room.
Oh.
That is so bright that they can't even see anymore. And it's just the Emperor's passive existence. The power he puts out is so potent. Every Thousand Son is certain even Magnus isn't at full strength around him. Their honor guard feeling more and more like a prisoner transport. It starts with, "Hey Magnus, come on in." And slowly they notice there's a lot of Space Marines piling in around us.
Huh.
And everyone is being very formal.
This
It
was
starts as kindness, and then it gets to this rigid formality that's a performance where everyone is talking, but nobody's really talking.
this was going to become a full execution, is what I'm gathering.
Oh, yeah.
Like a full, hey, we're gonna call all of you.
And the before it all starts, it ends with Magnus looking back at his sons with just the most hurt look in his eye as he just messages them, I now know why we're here.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's just so disheartening.
It's so tragic. And do you see why the full suit was required?
I do feel like I see.
It's the beginning of the end. At this point, they're done. And they go back to Prospero, playing just the saddest music all the way there. It's just sad tunes. And they're just really moping around for a couple months. And the timelines in 40k are weird, and I'm not going to bother putting it like at the most accurate, because they change it all the time. They change the lore all
It's
the
been
time.
exactly 43 days. No.
Yeah, pretty much. Things would not stay calm for long because, well, it's a Thousand Suns episode. So from their perspective, they've done nothing. Nothing at all. Just sat there, sanctioned, becoming worse at their jobs while they watch Magnus's orders get worse as well. Whole fleets are being sent to the far reaches of space with sealed orders that they're only allowed to open once they get there. Random murders were happening all around Prospero, with even the best psychers they have who could see into the future having their timeline pushed closer and closer and closer. They used to be able to see months. Now they can only see days, hours, until they can't see anything at all.
So I see the Calamities Temple and the Sisters of Silence were busy.
Sure, they're the ones doing that to them. Why not? What matters is, one day, out of nowhere, the planet is orbitally bombarded. And every single population center, save for the biggest one, their capital, is decimated in the... Oh, that's not the right word. Destroyed. I always get corrected for decimated in the comments. It's the most frequent one I see. It gets destroyed instantaneously in the opening moves by the Space Wolves. And...
Oh, we're here already?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're here already?
Yep.
Okay.
This is the Thousand Suns perspective. Nothing's happened in between. We're just being attacked suddenly. And all their pleas for help, every single communication they try and send out, it goes unheard. Something is jamming their comms. It's time for the Burning of Prospero.
Oh, God, okay.
It's one of the darkest days in Imperial history. Civilians are... Huh?
This is full on brother against brother now.
Yeah, civilians are being herded towards population centers, and as they arrive, they're very quickly discovering that they're not being taken to safety, but used as human shields. And the defenders have to either shoot through their brethren to get to the Space Wolves, or wait while the Space Wolves do it anyhow. The Thousand Suns go and try and ask, like, whoa, hey, Magnus, not sure if you're aware, Lehman Russ is here. Help.
He is killing all of us. What do we do?
And Magnus just responds, we deserve this. Yeah. Alexandria is properly burning. The Thousand Suns are being massacred. Women, children, combatants are not the target. Everything seems to be. And the whole time, the Thousand Suns are struggling their damnedest with just conventional weapons, not using anything, while the Space Wolves are out there using rune priests, who are definitely not psychers, bro. Trust me, this is just a wolf god empowering me. Warp? Never heard of it. Now eat this fireball. It's too much for any singular Thousand Sun to bear, and hearing their father say, we deserve this, snaps some of them out of it, and immediately they just go, we? You might, but I don't speak French. And they go out and have a hell of a showing against the Space Wolves. I love it because they start using their full power without any concern.
They took the training weights off.
all of them. And suddenly the City of Light fires up as you're attacked by a wizard over there. He's 3 miles away over there. And the Space Wolves will take a left, and it's the whole city starts twisting and reorganizing to stifle them while helping the Thousand Suns.
So we're talking a mix between like a Dragon Ball Z fight and a Doctor Strange fight.
It's so cool. It's so cool. And it is almost one of my favorite scenes for the Thousand Suns. If only the moment they start using warp powers, the Custodies arrive with not just any of them, but their Captain General, the guy who's to the left of all of those portraits of the Emperor, where he's got a flaming sword. Yeah. A man so competent, he has a spear that will siphon every memory out of you as he kills you, and can beat 30 separate people who can all see the future. Like, yes, you can see this right hook coming. It won't help you.
Huh.
Oh, and with them come the Sisters of Silence, too.
I was about to say.
Yes.
So bye-bye warp powers.
They're pulling further and further and reaching deeper and deeper into this ocean that's known as a warp, and eventually something gives. The flesh change starts all over again.
Yet again.
Worse than ever before. There's one case where a guy expands to multiple stories.
Stories, you say?
Yeah, they are so screwed. They're so, I love it. There's so many scenes where one will cast a spell and feel a ripple go across their flesh as their arm is now reorganized on the inside. It's... The Burning of Prospero is so rough on the Thousand Suns, and I have to skip so much of it because I can't even mention the Gundam they summoned, their spirit animals betraying them.
They summoned?
Yeah.
You can't glance over that.
I'm fully going to glance over it because this has to be its own episode. I already have so much to cover. We don't have time for this.
The Gundam?
Yes.
Summoned?
Of course the city has massive statues, and of course they wake up to defend it. It's the Thousand Suns we're talking about.
Oh my god.
Their familiars fully betray them, some turning into greater demons and start ripping through friend and foe alike. And the whole time, Dad is just watching. Until around when the flesh change starts ripping through them, it becomes too much for him to bear. Look, even he can tell the Thousand Suns deserve a lot. They don't deserve all this.
Yes, at some point it needs to stop.
And he provides the single best fight entrance. Fight me on this. I don't care. He provides the single best fight entrance in all of 40K. I got in a little bit of trouble for how much hype I gave it during the Space Wolves episode.
Yeah.
Because Space Wolves fans are not fans of Magnus at all.
No.
But want to know the funniest fact about that? That's me underselling it.
That was you underselling it?
Yes. First of all, he descends from atop a pyramid, and the first step he takes, purple lightning immediately arcs through the sky as day becomes night.
Huh.
And as with each step he takes, it becomes worse and worse. Thunder starts cracking through the sky, and rain turns pitch black as everything is responding to Magnus's fury. There are waves upon waves of energy that are so potent, some Thousand Suns are afraid that just being near him will cause a flesh change to happen.
Huh.
His hair is ablaze, and the more ruin he sees, the more angry he becomes, until what was day becomes night, and what was night becomes transparent. And the warp itself, the true raw warp, heaves against Prospero. As 1,000 eyes, some the size of mountains, stare down.
Huh.
It's so severe, I couldn't mention this during the wolf video, but it's so severe, several wolves look up and realize how insignificant they are. Magnus, with one eye, looks at a battle line and sets it on fire.
Jesus Christ.
And with his last step from atop the pyramid, time itself begins to obey his commands as everything stops, and he gives his sons the last orders he will probably ever give them. Which by the way, fun fact. Want to guess how many suns are left at this point?
Probably about 1,000.
Bingo! Good job! And he tells the last of them to go shelter inside his pyramid. He's completely failed them, and this is not their fault. It's his, and he will go make it right. As time resumes, and by the way, I don't mean, oh, time stopped, and this is a perception thing. No, they see Lehman approaching, full of fury, far too slowly. Yeah.
Huh.
I told you, I was underselling this. I love this entrance so much. It's like the one time we see Magnus actually get to flex.
And he full just like the world's time stop.
Yeah. And then he proceeds to lock him and Lehman Russ in a Thunderdome, a cage constructed of lightning, and redirects a river around them, causing whirlpools.
Jesus Christ.
And to show how dark of a day this was, all the Custodes, all the Sisters of Silence, and all the wolves see this happen and don't turn to face Magnus, but turn to go after the survivors.
Oh.
They immediately start turning to go breach that pyramid because nothing can leave Prospero.
Listen, he said it was the 1v1. That means we free reign to go get the civilians.
Except as they try to cross this torrential river that's raging around them, Magnus waves his hand, the water laughs and turns to acid.
Huh.
I told you. I was so underselling
on
this.
Custodes and Space Wolves?
Yup.
Yo.
Yeah. And every blow Magnus is raining down on Lehman is wreathed in the elements. There's one so loud, people think Prospero's cracked, as one of Lehman's two hearts immediately explodes. These are the things I couldn't mention in the wolf video.
He has...
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bookworm, but he's still a Primarch.
Spontaneous cardial pneumothorax is not the proper term for that.
You're going to piss off every doctor who watches this, of which we have quite a few. And med students, too.
I know pneumothorax is lungs. What is it? What is the technical term for your heart imploding?
Spontaneous cardiac implosion. Well, it's not spontaneous. It's trauma. Trauma-based.
Traumatic.
Yeah. Trauma-induced cardiac explosion.
Holy shit.
And with each and every blow, more and more happens. Windows start getting ripped off of things as this hurricane picks up all around them. Unfortunately, though, it is not a fight Magnus was destined to win.
Even with him cracking the literal fabric of reality open above them?
Yes. Cool. Counterpoint. Axe to the eye. They only got one of them Johns at this point. And now he's down to 0. Sometimes simplicity works.
So Magnus did all of that and got hit with the equivalent of nuh-uh and lost.
And this is why nobody ever gives Magnus his credit, because that's how he loses that amazing showing.
Poor Magnus. That's all I can think.
I will be fair. At this point, Lehman Russ is he may not be aware of it, but he is. They're both fighting and they look like titans, and all of Lehman's armor is glowing and seemingly reflecting some of the spells. So whether Lehman is aware of it or not, he is kind of casting spells as well. There's some wizardry, there's some chicanery happening there.
That or he's so just like unaware of magic that it just doesn't affect him.
Just curves right around him. One of my D&D characters is like that. I love him.
Dude, what's his name again?
Damon.
I love Damon.
It's great. Magic isn't real, and because of that, my DM was nice enough to make it not work on me once a day. Worth it.
Wasn't he also like a half vampire who didn't think vampirism was real? He just thought it was normal to sleep on the ceiling.
He just let a stranger in and got mugged, and now he sleeps on the ceiling upside down. Yeah, it was fun.
It's good for blood flow to the brain.
Yeah, this is fun. And at this point, there's no two ways about this. The second Magnus's eye is gone, Wizardry is all well and good. Lehman's actually fought in bars. He knows how to take advantage of an opportunity, tackles Magnus to the ground immediately, lifts him over his head, and breaks his back. It is a blow so vicious, it causes sympathetic pain in every Thousand Son, as they all feel what they describe as a blow that could unmake a Primarch.
The verbiage of unmake is so significant here.
Yeah. So Magnus is missing both eyes, has no back to speak of, and Lehman's not going to leave a job unfinished. He's ready to finish the job right then and there, and Magnus reaches for that familiar current that he's reached to a couple of times at this point, and utters words that are unrepeatable as every Thousand Son is immediately teleported away, including Magnus.
This is the point where we realize he's made a deal with Cthulhu.
I don't know, has he?
Yeah.
Look, the Thousand Sons have just moved halfway across the galaxy. Maybe that's something Magnus could do anyway.
But the speaking in tongues thing.
When you're casting wizardry, you say weird stuff. You're thinking about this far too much.
No.
When they arrive, possibly because of the effort it takes to move that much stuff halfway across the galaxy, or the backbreaker delivered by Lehman Russ, Magnus is fully spent and shatters into pieces.
Shatters into pieces.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah, they're fragments. It's like an Infinity Stone thing. It gives the Thousand Sons a fun side quest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's what they do for quite a bit of the heresy, honestly. Just let's assemble Let's assemble the fine china back together, please. And each shard is said to represent a part of Magnus, which we're not going to get into each shard and what it does. We'll only mention the ones that matter for the Thousand
How
Sons.
many of them are there?
Some are large enough to be recognized as clearly Magnus. Others are particles of dust floating in the reaches of space.
Cool. So some of these became like a needle in a haystack search.
Spoiler alert, they will not find them all.
Isn't he back?
Yeah.
Just incomplete.
I love followers of Zinj so much.
Oh.
Any excuse I get to confuse you, God help you when I do an Alpha Legion episode. God help you. I will make sure you leave knowing less. If you leave knowing your full legal name, I'll be upset.
My social security number will be on the internet. And at the same time, I will have no social security number.
Precisely. They do assemble enough of them to get a Magnus back, and this does mean that they're traitors for most of the heresy. But only kind of, because they are working with the traitors, and they are going to help siege the Emperor's palace. But that's only because a rather big shard of Magnus happens to be in there. Which is a kind of important one, because it's the noble shard of Magnus, which is all of his goodness and kindness. So yeah, you kind of want that back.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe you could just bring him back evil with a goatee.
Well, that's the version they have now. I was just going to ask, what does that tell you about the version they've assembled so far?
He's evil.
Maybe the reason the good shard of Magnus is in the palace is because that's the last place he felt comfortable. Maybe it ran in begging for atonement. Maybe you've bumped into this shard before in a previous episode, Coda. It's irrelevant. And maybe we'll keep bumping into it during this episode. I don't know. But that's just the final part of the heresy. Let's get into it. The key thing I want to mention about the Thousand Sons mindset is, after all the horrors they have experienced over the course of the last 20-ish minutes, they're still fairly optimistic.
20? That's a very optimistic estimate of how long this has gone on for.
Just like they are. Despite having been dealt the worst blow they've ever experienced, do you know what their current plan is during the heresy?
What is this? What silly, naive plan do they have? I love them, but at this point I say it.
You figured it out. While everyone is busy trying to kill the Emperor and make sure Horus winds up atop of the heap, Magnus and company plan to make sure that the traitors are strong enough to win the day. They actually have this really touching moment where they heal a couple of the traitor Primarchs. Really, really sweet stuff. But the moment that's done, they're going to slink away, rebuild the Crimson King, and then when Horus beats the Emperor, Magnus at full strength will kill Horus and then take his rightful place upon the Golden Throne because nobody else is worthy.
Cool.
Leading humanity into a bright future where psychers are treated equal as it doesn't happen.
Dude, I
None of
love
that-
the
none
Thousand
of that
Suns,
comes
but
to
this
pass.
is such a level of naivete that's...
Yeah, Magnus's plan, who lost to Lehman, by the way, his plan was to beat Horus
Horus with all 4 Chaos Gods
after Horus beats Dad.
staring directly at him.
I have no idea how he hoped to accomplish that. But this is a point where things get weird because with Magnus shattered, they technically have a house divided. Like I mentioned, some parts are big enough where you look at it and you go, well, that's clearly Magnus or a part of him. And others are just things that whisper at far too much power. It's all... The fun thing about the Shards of Magnus is they have popped up a few times now.
Have they?
Yes, and they almost deserve... I'm not going to say... A couple of the shards deserve their own episodes because they are active. But these shards cause the Thousand Sons to be stuck in plots weaved by their own father to spite their own father.
Like some shards just spiting other shards?
Yeah, there's a shard that just wants power. It's his birthright to sit upon that throne. Nobody else will do it but me.
Is that where that plan came from?
Gee, I wonder what shard they're working with.
I see.
There's another shard that feels nothing but love for his sons and just wants to finally do right by them. Finally hold up that guarantee he made when he met them that he has never been able to fulfill, despite losing an eye, a back, and another eye. And then there's another that is a raging demon that just loves knowledge and hoarding it. We'll get to that one later. And another is banished by one of his brothers after just sitting in the ruins of Prospero and weeping over what was lost. Some of these shards are like in truly heart-wrenching places.
They're just like his depression, a shard.
Some of them. Some go out and do good. One shard helps the salamanders fix their dad.
Really?
Yes. Another shard goes off to be in charge of the Grain Heights. That's the one you've bumped. Yes! I love Zinch episodes. I love this.
It what?
Yeah. And I won't mention that shard again.
You can't just edge that. What?
Yep. Yep.
You're joking with
I'm
me.
really not. And the funniest thing is all of these shards could be a trick by the god of deceit himself. We don't know which shards are real and we don't know which aren't. Also, all of this could be cope by Magnus. He's been whole the entire time, and this is him justifying his awful actions, because current Magnus has been kind, despite him not having any of his noble components. Yeah. And current Magnus, who we're just going to call the Crimson King from now on, after failing to get his noble shard, decides to just go off and kill the Emperor where he sits.
Cool.
They stay optimistic.
Very, very. You know what? I love them for that. But
Yeah.
Guys,
He arrives and is force-fed the entire hammer aisle of a Home Depot by his brother Vulcan. It's not pretty. It's rough. And he runs right back to the warp. After about 5 minutes, he attempts for round 2. This time trying to assault from the warp. And this time he gets to bump into Vulcan, who feeds him the entire hammer aisle of a Lowe's, Costco, and a Wickies, all at once while the Emperor looks him in the eye and tells him how much of a failure he is. It is at this point that he swears loyalty to Zinch and accepts everything that has happened, reveling in becoming an unkillable demon Primarch, serving the Lord of Knowledge and Change.
literally going, well, I've tried this one a couple times. It don't work. So I guess we're going to try this one.
Yep. And this also means that the Crimson King will not hold up his end of the bargain. The Thousand Sons will continue to suffer the flesh change well after the heresy, and Magnus will see it as a gift.
think that's the most heart-wrenching part of this of all.
It's so sad.
I think that is the most heart-wrenching part of this.
This whole time, there's another shard conspiring against this shard and watching as something wearing his face is spiting his sons.
Well, technically, it's not wearing his face. It's just they are all equally Magnus.
No, each shard thinks that it's the full Magnus.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. And each shard is really powerful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's easy to see why it thinks it's the full Magnus. I can make it rain. Like, dude, come on.
What would happen if those two were linked?
We'll get to that later. What matters is this current status quo after the heresy chafes the hell out of a couple of thousand suns. Everything they'd done was for Magnus, and now he was lounging away.
Just reading books with Zinch.
Yep. And this is before, by the way, we mentioned that during the final assault of the heresy, the Crimson King, Magnus, whatever the hell you want to call him, shard number 365, finally fesses up to the Thousand Sons and confesses that the reason Prospero burned is because Magnus weakened its defenses. He sent all their fleets to the far reaches of space to do nothing. And all of this because he saw the heresy first. He saw how this was going to play out and went to... Let me be fair to Magnus. This is a guy who was just trying to tell the Emperor of a catastrophe the fastest way he knew how. This is how he spoke to Dad since birth. It's more natural than talking, I'd wager. But he organized a massive ritual where he sacrificed something like 999 people to be cast into the warp. It's a random number, don't think about it too much. To be to be cast into the warp.
God, no.
And go speak to the Emperor directly.
My God.
And when he arrived, I don't actually... That one might be off of memory. Magnus does a lot of rituals with nines. Don't quote me on that one, but I think it was 999. I could be wrong. What matters is he arrives at where the Emperor should be and finds a barrier that is unbreakable even to him. He's trying all the force he can. He's trying all the weaknesses. There's nothing that will make this go. And as he reaches into that ocean again, he finds a current he's felt before. A very, very powerful current that offers just enough force to shatter this barrier. Which he does. Shattering this barrier that was clearly erected by a fiend to prevent him from letting the Emperor know. And as he arrives, he is burning. Just there are waves of excess energy just wafting off of him because that's the effort it takes for him to shatter this barrier, and he's flanked by an honor guard of greater demons. As the custodians in the room begin getting overwhelmed.
And this didn't tell him that maybe he was maybe going about this the wrong way?
It's too late. He's punched a hole in the
late.
fabric of reality beneath the Emperor's bedroom and ruined a project he's been working for almost 10,000 years. Everyone in the room sees Magnus, this entity wreathed in fire that has breached a barricade erected by the Emperor himself and just starts shooting. They think it's a demon. And to be fair, look at what's coming through.
It looks like a demon.
It looks like a demon. Everyone else perceives him this way, except for the master of mankind, who looks him in the eyes and sees his wayward son. And in that moment, nothing is said, but Magnus sees everything. Everything that could have been. The fact that he was the one who was actually supposed to sit on the golden throne, guiding humanity after the crusade. He was supposed to be the lighthouse. He was supposed to be the master of the warp. And in that moment, he knew it would never happen. Something had changed his fate. And he was forcibly cast out of the Emperor's light, the sun finally burning him. After this, he does something that no Primarch has ever done or will ever do afterwards, and just accepts death. He fully just wants to leap off a bridge and wants to take his legion with him. So he cripples them. He wreaths the world in this psychic null zone so no communications function. He slowly narrows the window that the scryers can see until they can't see far enough. Anyone who figures this out is murdered.
So the Calidus Temple and Sister of Silence weren't up to this. This
Yeah.
was all him?
Yeah. If anyone found out, if anyone could divine it, their mind was wiped.
Ah.
And now they're stuck, not even with the guy who did that, but the worst aspects of him, the Crimson King, a shattered thing that's degrading. After the heresy just starts falling apart again.
These poor guys, dude.
This leads to enough. There is a large enough group that they fully rebel and they steal Magnus. Well, they don't steal it. Magnus gave it to them. They use Magnus's diary, which is the book of Magnus. It's a whole thing. It's everything Magnus has ever known written down, and it's constant. If you look at his model, it's always chained to him. Fun fact, and it's always twisting and churning and reorganizing, adding information as Magnus discovers it, no matter where he is, and reorganizing it as you read it to be better. If you are not a strong enough psyker, merely looking at the book will drive you mad. If you are enough of a psyker to open it twice, you will discover it has changed in new ways. There's info in there that hasn't happened yet. There's info in there that's being written over as it is being learned. And as the book runs out of space, the font will get smaller or more pages will appear. It's the definition of a living document. And if you're reading it and you don't speak whatever Magnus spoke, it'll translate it for you automatically. The book is always with Magnus, unless it isn't, and it has the actual, no joke, Christian devil bound beneath it, or within it, I should say.
The what?
Yeah.
Lucifer's just in there?
Satan.
Okay.
Shaitan. Yeah.
Okay.
Genghis Khan gets to be a demon in 40k.
Okay.
Well, probably gets to be a demon in 40k.
Okay.
Shaitan gets to be bound in that.
Cool.
The book is a whole thing.
Why not?
It is the work of a brilliant, just a psyker without any peer, and it is the grimoire for the strongest sorcerer in existence. Using that book and the strongest sorcerers the Thousand Sons had left, they agree that even death would be better than whatever they're stuck with right now, and cast a spell called the Great Rubric, which is where that noble shard comes in. Well, not the noble one, the one that Magnus the Father.
Okay.
Yes, because this Rubric spell maybe was started by him.
Maybe.
Possibly. And he was maybe helping him. This part was real murky. Anything when it comes to the shards is awfully murky. It doesn't matter. What matters is the Great Rubik's Cube was supposed to cure the flesh change forever, period, with some severe terms and conditions. It's like one of those medical ads where I want to just cue the music. Are you horrifically pouring out of your armor? Feeling your very skin rebel against your existence? Try Rubric by Ahriman. Rubric by Ahriman is a once-in-a-lifetime pill that will bring your flesh-changing desires into check. By getting the strongest of our wizards together, and completely ignoring the great conspirator in the corner, we have found a way to best him in totality. Why live in fear of becoming a chaos spawn? Or being forcibly changed by the changer of ways? Or being stuck, locking eyes with your twin brother as your face hideously morphs beyond recognition? I don't live with that, and neither should you. Ask your biomancer if Rubric by Ahriman is right for you. If you are a Thousand Son, Rubric by Ahriman may not be right for you. Please check with your biomancer if you have any history of being on Prospero, being related to Magnus the Red, or having used psychic powers in the last 6 months. Do not use Rubric of Ahriman while driving or operating heavy machinery. Stop the Rubric and call your biomancer immediately if you feel reality itself heaving. See every demon, minor and major, fleeing from your homeworld en masse. Witness an energy storm, vaporize your brothers all around you. Or experience symptoms like itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Using Rubric of Ahriman while serving Zinj greatly raises your odds of killing your entire legion outright, save for the best and brightest. Common side effects include nausea, vomiting, decreased appetite, dizziness, hemorrhoids, virginity, mild discomfort, sugar high, gender impermanence, vampirism, total, irreversible scrotal implosion, and dehydration. To keep my skin in check, I use Rubric by Ahriman, and you should too. I said I was going to get experimental this episode. Do you need a minute?
I needed to force myself to not laugh.
Oh, I could tell. In the wake of the Rubric, do you want to guess how many thousand suns were left?
I would say 1,000.
This time, maybe. I'm not sure. I tried my damnedest to find a number. I couldn't find it.
But
On the low end, 700.
from the Ahriman episode, I figured there were not a lot around after this.
Like I said, the best I could find, the lowest I could find was 700. It could be higher than that. Don't quote me on it. Don't quote me on it.
Well, it seemed like this one was like a great culling.
Yeah. The Rubric was a spell so powerful, their planet, which again is in Tzeentch's zip code, the master of change, his very form is inconsistent, constantly shifting, his flesh always changing. It goes without saying that anything in his realm would do the exact same thing. They orbit a star that is going through all of its every single phase at once. It will be a dust cloud one day, red giant.
Just all at once.
Yeah.
It is in all states at all times.
Yes. Everything in there is ever changing. Nothing is consistent. The moment the spell starts, the planet stops and is held in place. As every demon immediately sits up, I'm gonna die, and runs towards the deepest end of the warp. Every demon immediately flees as the 1,000 suns start being consumed by this spell that's causing pain so severe it's described as your teeth searing in place. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Some of them describe their bones conducting a charge.
No, thank you.
It as it strikes 1,000 suns, some of them are immediately dusted in their armor, becoming useless Rubric marines, these golems that are just statues unless a wizard is powerful enough, then, you know, they get to move around. Shadow Wizard Money Gang, you know how it works. The only reason it does not do that to every single 1,000 sun is because Magnus intervenes and begs Tzeentch to make it stop.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
At that point, it was, and this is, by the way, the Crimson King.
Who had to fess up and go, lost a little bit of control there. Can you help me stop?
Well, actually, remember, they did this in rebellion, so he didn't have a part. He just woke up. Wait, why isn't my living room moving?
What are you guys doing?
Yeah, why didn't my couch change? This book is where I left it. Something has gone wrong.
Why didn't my couch change?
Yeah. By the time Magnus got it to stop, it was far too late. The 1,000 suns had killed themselves. The Emperor had abandoned them, Magnus had betrayed them, and Lehman had broken them. But the biggest tragedy of the day is the person who did the most damage was themselves. Those who survived would no longer suffer the flesh change, that is true, and their powers had increased tenfold. But the process had cost them hundreds of their brothers.
Yeah, this is like saying, I've got a bunion on my right foot, and then treating it by chopping your leg off above the knee.
Yep. They reduced their brothers to golems that could only be used in combat or for basic menial labor. The guy who started all this, Ahriman, was banished immediately. Magnus was going to kill him, outright ready to murder him before Tzeentch himself stepped in and went, nah, this guy's pretty funny.
This guy's pretty funny.
Now that was a twist. Let's keep him around. And so Magnus decides to compromise. Fine, I won't kill you. You're even welcome back home once you figure out the true nature of the Great Deceiver. Which is not going to happen.
Yeah, as we said in the Patreon video, this is like Zuko being sent out to go find the Avatar.
Yeah.
It's
it,
not
It was
happening.
basically, get lost, I never want to see you
It is
again.
never happening.
Thankfully, this would not do a thing to stop Ahriman from coming back and trying a second Great Rubric. This time, not killing all the Thousand Sons, but still failing due to outside interference.
Yeah.
And conveniently enough, maybe through some meddling, maybe through them not, welding together Magnus,
Cool.
but the worst variant.
Awesome.
So now, that's the version we all know and live with the nipple horns.
Instead of getting a goatee like usually the evil character gets, the nipple horns.
Yeah. To be fair, there's one piece of art where it looks really cool because it's him getting ready to eviscerate a space wolf. And he looks like a rhino about to charge you. It looks like if whatever he's holding won't kill you, and whatever he unleashes won't kill you, his body weight and those 4 spears sticking out of him will.
He's going to gore you with his sharp nips.
I'm trying really hard to make him cool, man. Cut me some slack.
It's very cold in here.
That rubric, I left this out because I wanted to keep it a surprise, did also give them a new problem to be permanently aware of.
Oh, wow. Yay. I love new problems to be permanently aware of.
Yes, the rubric didn't stop this time.
Awesome.
It is still raging through the warp and will randomly strike the Thousand Suns.
Cool.
Yeah, it will slowly wither away your abilities. So it's the same thing as when Magnus was slowly murking up the vision of their psychers. But it'll just start happening to you. And then eventually, once you lose all of your power, you'll be struck by this burning sensation that starts at your core and then radiates out until everything is ablaze. They get stricken with magic shingles.
Thanks. Shingles is already bad enough.
Magic shingles.
Magic shingles.
A generational curse of magic shingles.
Ay.
They can't catch a break.
No.
And this does not stop until you feel the storm itself, the full power of the rubric burning you in the warp. That's all you hear, that's all you feel, that's all you see, and then it stops. It's so bad that some rubric marines, the guys who are just dust in armor,
Golems.
yes, have been known to cry for names that are long gone. As this, it's such a cool description because the rubric marine will just stiffen up and stop, and you will see fire and smoke start pouring out of its armor. And it'll start howling in a voice you haven't heard in years, for names you haven't heard in years, and it's begging for the fire to stop. There have been some cases where the rubric marines, the dust piloting armor, fully just turn into dust and the whole thing just heaps over, falls apart.
To make dust scream.
Yeah. And it's been known to make those who survived the rubric become rubric marines now. And it just keeps striking until you get one of those 2 fates.
I hate that.
It brings me to my final point about the Thousand Suns. You've already divined this. Look, they deserve it a little bit. They really do. Icarus, flying close to the sun. They do. They do. They're the epitome of that story. But they've fallen at this point. They've landed. Why did the sun get closer, get 2 fists, and start beating them? There's no reason for the sun to personally be aware of their existence and choke them out regularly. Like, yes, be punished for hubris, not forever. Even Sisyphus had an end to his sentence. They don't. It's not like the boulder would get heavier the further he pushed it, yes? It wouldn't grow spikes every time it rolled down. Or hammers wouldn't get added to the course Wipeout-style cameras, the bouncy balls. Like, it's... Even Sisyphus, it's the same hill. It never gets worse. It never gets better. The Thousand Suns keep getting it worse. They're constantly bleeding their numbers. It's gotten to the point where I can't even comfortably call them the Thousand Suns. It's like the 50 tops.
Maybe 2,
'Cause
3,
think about
4,
it.
or 5.
The Thousand Suns, for them to have survived 3 waves of the flesh change, the burning of Prospero, the betrayal of Magnus, the rubric, the third maybe rubric coming soon to a theater near you, the current rubric raging out of control, all of Tzeentch's plots. Oh, and this whole time, they're fighting characters who, listen, I love Gilliman. He reeks of plot armor sometimes, man.
I don't know what to say.
They're unloved by the Imperium. They're unloved by Chaos. Their patron is the one out of all of them that will screw you over. At least Slanesh will do it literally. And the one guy who's supposed to root for them, their dad, the guy who's always supposed to be there, is gone, replaced by this petty and vindictive thing. Whether it's Cope or not, whether this is Magnus refusing to be kind or not, what matters is, worst case scenario, Magnus has the capacity to be kind and is choosing not to. Best case scenario, the parts of Magnus that could be kind are dead.
He's just not there anymore. Not in the house.
The wings have melted. It's been 5 years. Why are they still getting kicked by the sun? The more I read about these guys, the more suffering I found over and over and over. Not even... Look. Okay, hold on. And the worst bit of seasoning on this awful, awful cake that they have to eat is the fact that despite the fact that they are outright traitors, some of them are willing to sacrifice their lives in the vague hope that maybe their afflictions can be cured. Nobody else does that. Not even the good, well, it's 40k, so there's no good guys, but not even the good guys are willing to do that. And they try constantly and then get beaten for it. And I don't mean like, oh, I tried to go to school today and I was, mugged. No, it is, I tried to go to school and Mike Tyson was waiting for me at the front door. The next day, Habib was waiting for me. And this just kept on happening. At some point, all three, like, what am I supposed to do? Muhammad Ali's been dead for a couple of years now, but he's back and waiting for me.
Muhammad Ali rose from the grave.
Yes, just to beat the brakes off of me.
And then Goku showed up.
All the Thousand Suns fans need to change their slogan, because it shouldn't be Magnus did nothing wrong. I'm trying, but even you can tell Magnus did plenty wrong. Their new slogan should just be cut me some slack. I'm trying here, man. Just give me some room. I'm so sick and tired of seeing Magnus did nothing wrong when he clearly did plenty wrong. Just shift it to cut me some slack. Because I've never found a legion that just takes this many losses back to back to back to back to back.
The Thousand Suns, give a guy a break.
Yeah. Give me some room to breathe, for God's sake, man. It has to end at some point. The suffering stops now.
These poor guys.
Yeah.
That's all I could think throughout this entire video.
I genuinely think that everyone gives the Lamenters the saddest legion. I think they've lost less than 1,000 Suns. Because I don't think... Okay, well, they have one. I will mention it. But they don't win often. We should probably mention what they're up to today, which is mostly just pulling out the Space Wolves' tails with a resounding and properly and regularly assaulting the Space Wolves' home. And look, the traders are in a really weird spot where they don't do much. They just kind of show up.
They kind of did their trader thing, and now they're just like, well, we can't go back.
Well, it's because they have infinite respawns, so you can kind of kill them frequently whenever you want to show
Aside
something
from
strong.
Perturabo doesn't have... Does he?
We don't know.
No.
We either haven't seen them or we have, and they've just gotten curb stomped by everyone.
He's just doing pretty things in the corner.
But Magnus has actually accomplished a couple of things.
Has he now?
Yes, he has assaulted the Space Wolves' homes multiple times, stopped them from curing their weird flesh affliction.
Cool.
Because if I can't fix mine, you for sure won't. I promise you that now. And this wasn't just he showed up, ransacked, and left. He showed up, beat the brakes off of them, sundered their fortress, and then pulled their ships into orbit before detonating them, just to make their atmosphere inhospitable.
Huh.
Yeah.
Is Fenris just like unlivable now?
It's a bit warmer.
Oh.
They don't have as many polar bears.
Global warming on Fenris.
Yeah, but it's just Magnus. Oops, it's like those congressional hearings we have on global warming, and what is it? Is it big oil? Is it people driving? Is it you not eating enough? I don't know, right? Instead of that, it's just that on Fenris and global warming on Fenris. Picture of Magnus. How do we solve it? Kill Magnus. Well, he respawns. That's all I got, dude. That's all I got. And he's also brought his current planet, the one in the warp, right on top of where Prospero used to be. He kind of just no-clipped it. Yeah.
Like, what, some fifth dimensional, like, trickery or something?
No, he just moved it. He wanted to.
Oh.
Magnus is a really powerful psyker, man.
Yeah.
And he's only gotten stronger in the warp. You have to remember, even though he's only spent thousands of years in the warp time's different. It's like the hyperbolic time chamber. God
He could have
knows.
spent like 10,000 times in there.
Yeah. Who knows? What matters is he just did that. And despite the fact that everybody knows where the Thousand Suns are, they can't do a thing about it.
Because good luck getting close.
You can get close. You can even fire on it.
Okay, then what's the problem here?
You know, you could get close to the planet and then suddenly every bit of munition on board detonates.
Ah.
Or your warp drive engages with your shields off. Or you fire and it looks like you leveled it and you make planetfall and it was all an illusion. Or just psychic barriers. Or, I kid you not, the Hanna-Barbera, you fire a bullet, Magnus pulls out a tube and redirects it right back at you.
He pulls the JoJo shot glass.
Yeah. It's the Thousand Suns are so unfathomably cool and so unfathomably powerful that it's such a shame we'll never see them try against anything that matters because they just win.
Now they've just gotten petty.
Yeah, pretty much. They live to spite the wolves. They fought Gilliman recently. That was pretty good. It was a decent showing by Magnus. He was surrounded by Sisters of Silence and still almost killed Gilliman. So, yeah.
Okay.
Magnus gets awful close to almost doing a lot.
And then a Sister of Silence
happens.
something shows up.
Always something happens. And that is pretty much all they're up to. Maybe they're working on a third rubric of Ahriman. Maybe the Noble Shard's still alive somewhere. Maybe Magnus will actually accomplish something. Maybe Magnus could be redeemed. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe.
Who knows? All I know is there is so much I couldn't mention this episode because of time. I definitely didn't mention any of the enumerations, which is our whole thing. I didn't mention the witch cults. I didn't mention the tutelaries.
He said toot.
They're actually pretty cool. It's like familiars. They have pet familiars.
That's kind of cool.
It's so cool, and I couldn't mention it because the whole thing.
But also you said toot.
There's for there being only like 10,000 suns at this point tops. There is
even
so much more to them. They have a whole department of wizards that's strikingly hot.
What are they, just fused with like Fulgrim DNA or something?
No, they're the biomancers.
Oh.
Think about it. Of course you're going to be conventionally attractive if you can manipulate flesh.
I'm just going to do that on myself.
Yeah, easily. If I could do that to myself, I would immediately bump up to like 6'3". I think 6'3". Because 6 is fine. I'm fine where I am. But 6'3" is where you're officially tall, but you're not inconveniently tall. You know what I mean? You can still fit in things. You can still sit in airplanes. You can still drive most cars, you know? And so 6'3". And so they totally do that. They totally make sure their packs are all perfect. There's so much. The Thousand Suns are so much fun, but they also use their powers for what you would totally use.
They would be turning themselves into handsome Squidward.
It's not disturbingly handsome, just handsome. It's just like, oh man, I really hope I get to see the doctor today. I love it because the way their biomancers are described, it would give women the vapors.
The vapor.
Yeah, it's that level of attractive where it's like, whoof, whoof.
The vapor.
Yeah, you're just going to the doctor to see the doctor for no reason at all. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's not hot enough to land in LA and immediately be discovered, just hot enough for local moms to visit the doctor too often, or call the plumber too often, or ask for too many tennis lessons. You know, it's that level of hot. It's a specific point, because there is a point where it's like, you know, because Hollywood hot is very different from normal hot. Because Hollywood hot's like, what the, why are you, like, jeez.
You're
right?
so hot, it's almost a genetic defect.
Exactly. It's gone too far. But then there's just like the kind of person where you just see them walking by and you're like, Jesus, damn. Why are you walking to a Costco at 3 a.m? We're like, okay, whatever, sure, right? And that's the level they go for, pretty much. It's not it's not a BBL, it's natural.
I guess this just in, every Thousand Sun, on top of everything else they can do, has a BBL.
Yeah. I mean, part of how they were tracked during the Burning of Prospero was by the as they were running around. But that does bring an end to probably the longest episode we've ever done. And
Yeah.
what did you? No, I already know what you think about the Thousand Suns. I'd be curious about what you think.
I
about
love them,
the
but I
Thousand
think
Suns.
they're sad.
Yeah.
Give them a break.
And I know if Wes ever watches this video, I'm gonna get in trouble for some of the stuff I skipped because he's a huge Thousand Suns fan. And yeah, it's just too much to cover.
Honestly,
too much to cover.
I see the appeal.
From the weird bird stuff they have going on to the fact that they ride surfboards now.
I've seen the surf. I love the surfboards.
It's really cool. They're a pain to paint.
Aren't they like demons? Like those surfboards are just full demons?
It's alive. Of course it is. I love the Thousand Suns. I love the Thousand Suns so much.
No, and they're like Tzeentch adjacent, and I think Tzeentch is my favorite chaos god.
He's got a good aesthetic.
He's got a really good aesthetic.
You could say he's very future-minded. He's got a great aesthetic. But yeah, I'd be very curious to see what you think about this episode. And if you'd like to see more longer episodes, you keep asking for the 12-hour heresy. That means you got at least bare minimum, you got to watch this one. And then we'll see about the 12-hour heresy video, which, man, that might be the only video you get that month.
No, for real, yeah.
And it may have commercial breaks, it may have collabs, and it's definitely going to be a lower tone because it's going to be the kind of video where I expect you... Actually, no, this video is going to be like that a little too, where there's going to be some hard chapters, and you can come back to it whenever you want, you know? Just slowly work your way through it. It's a lot to sit through. But
I you not, if we do a 12-hour video, I'm going to be disgusting. I'm going to have a microwave right here on the desk that is constantly feeding me, like, I don't know, chicken nuggets. I'm going to sit here hungry and tired.
They will remember this. Be careful what you speak. I don't want to have to wire a microwave.
Coffee machine.
I could wire a coffee machine for you. I think I could. But yes, thank you so much for watching this extra long episode. And thank you, as always, for being you.